The Cleveland Browns have been on the hunt for a wide receiver seemingly all off season. We heard that they might be trading for Jerry Jeudy, but now they have made the move for a New York Jet. His name is Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore has been traded to the Cleveland Browns for a second-round pick, the 42nd pick in this year's 2023 NFL Draft. And in return, the Browns receive Elijah Moore and a third-round pick, the 74th selection in this year's NFL Draft. Elijah Moore will join Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones in Deshaun Watson's receiving core. Not bad at all for Watson entering a huge year, a franchise-altering, changing year for the Cleveland Browns. They put so much into Deshaun Watson working that they must invest in the pieces and weapons around him. And Elijah Moore gives him a wide receiver that has untapped potential at the NFL level. We saw in his rookie season that this guy could really be something. But then last year, the Jets, they draft Garrett Wilson. Elijah Moore has a fit behind the scenes with the general manager and the coaching staff, and he never seemed to fit with the Jets and their culture and what they were building, and they didn't really treat him right, and he, of course, couldn't get on the same page with Zach Wilson and the different quarterbacks that were at the helm for the Jets, and now he's going to a situation where he's going to have a new home, a new opportunity, a clean slate, and a much more talented quarterback position than he did previously with the Jets. Elijah Moore is still on his rookie contract, which is why I believe this is a nice trade for the Cleveland Browns. I think out of the two teams, the winner here is the Browns because they get a talented receiver who was formerly, I believe, a second-round pick not too long ago, a couple years ago, and they still get a third in return for just moving up in the draft a round if you're the New York Jets. Now, I also understand if you're the New York Jets why you made this move. They just recently signed Mecole Hardman. They still have Corey Davis under contract, although I'm not sure how long that's going to last. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. They've been flirting with OBJ this entire offseason, and they also have a man named Garrett Wilson. Aaron Rodgers is coming in, so they've got to move pieces around. Allen Lazard, they also signed. I almost forgot about that one. So they have a lot of receivers in New York, and it was just a matter of time. Was it going to be Corey Davis? Was it going to be Elijah Moore? Who is going to be on their way out? And I wouldn't even be surprised if they were still making moves there. But the Cleveland Browns get a player that I've liked. Like, I really thought his sophomore year, he was going to have a breakout year. I was one of the people in the fantasy community kind of buying in a little bit to the Elijah Moore hype. Maybe not as much as other people out there, but Elijah Moore is a smaller receiver. Elijah Moore is 5'10". He is 178 pounds, according to Pro Football Reference. Although, I don't even know if he looks 5'10". He looks smaller than that. I mean, the guy looks 5'8", 5'9" to me, just watching him. But he's shown some flashes. In his rookie year, he caught 43 balls for 538 yards, and he also had 5 touchdowns. In his second season, he had 37 receptions on just 65 targets for 446 yards, but only 1 touchdown. So Elijah Moore definitely regressed in his second year, but it was not due to him. More so it was due to opportunity and circumstance. So that's something, if you're a Browns fan, to say, you know what, we may have something here with Elijah Moore. When you look at the receiving core with the Browns, you've got Amari Cooper, who's your number one. He's your outside receiver. He can go vertical. He can run routes with the best of them, and he can separate down the field. Donovan Peoples-Jones is also a guy that's more of a vertical threat, more of a downfield threat, more of a speed burner type, got more size to him, right? So you've got the bigger size guy with speed. You've got kind of a, not the biggest receiver, not the smallest receiver in Amari Cooper, but more of the number one route runner. And then you've got a smaller guy who can operate in the slot if you're Elijah Moore, who's played out on the outside as well, but he could play both slot outside role, and I would expect him to play a lot in the slot for this Browns offense, and that's where I see him fitting in. You also have David Bell, who maybe they weren't sold on because he wasn't explosive enough, at least I thought coming out of the draft last year, but he could be like your number 4, right? So Elijah Moore is, I think, a talented guy with some good speed and great quickness. I always felt his quickness was there. Showed flashes in yards after catch opportunities. And I feel like it was more of a off the field thing of why he didn't succeed with the Jets, and also the convoluted quarterback situation more than anything else. Now, Jets fans can let me know what they think of Elijah Moore. I don't think they'd be the happiest to say that he is gone and he's on a new team. I also don't know how Jets fans feel about signing Allen Lazard and giving him all that money while you had a cheap option like Elijah Moore on the books. Like, personally, if I look at it that way, like, Allen Lazard's fine, and I understand signing him for Aaron Rodgers, but if you're looking at it one for one, money to money, I mean, Elijah Moore is a much greater asset, in my opinion, given the money invested in Allen Lazard. So I think that's a lot to do with Aaron Rodgers and not a lot to do with common sense and actual talent at the wide receiver position, because I felt like Elijah Moore could have thrived in a guy that is kind of somewhat reminiscent to a Randall Cobb in that skill set to play in the slot, a quick, shifty guy, and he's got some speed as well. And we'll see how he develops with the Browns. There's not going to be pressure on him to come in and be the number 1 or even really the number 2. And you've also got a very talented tight end, one of the best in the game. So you're not really relying on him to be a go-to receiver. You're relying on him to be the cherry on top, the skill set that has been missing from the Cleveland Browns offense, which is the shifty underneath intermediate receiver who can separate and get open from the middle of the field, which is a lot of times a safety blanket for a receiver and can get Deshaun Watson into a rhythm in the passing game and specifically pick up some first downs on those 3rd and 4s and get drives started on some screens or some handoffs. And Elijah Moore, I think, can be effective in a variety of spots. You can line him up outside, you can put him in the slot, and you can, use him as a hybrid, jet sweep guy. So he could do a lot of different things for an offense. And I think the Jets look at it as, now we have Mecole Hardman, now we have Corey Davis, now we have Garrett Wilson. So this skill set doesn't really fit for us. Allen Lazard's going to play in the slot for us as a big slot. We don't really need Elijah Moore. We didn't like how he handled his situation last year. And maybe he does have issues off the field. But I think getting, just moving down in the draft for getting a position that you were likely going to draft anyways, I'm sure that Cleveland probably liked him coming out the year that he was drafted, which probably gave them a good idea of what the player was like, the skill set, how he would fit in the offense, how he would fit with Deshaun Watson. And then again, going back to this, the Browns are in win now mode. We don't think of them as that right now because the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Jets now getting Aaron Rodgers and the Dolphins and the Bills and all these teams, the Chargers in the AFC, and there's even more that I didn't name, like the Ravens, the Steelers, the Patriots. I mean, the list goes on. The Broncos all trying to win. The Browns are still in that territory because Deshaun Watson, because they've invested so much into this quarterback. So they need to surround him with playmakers. They need to surround him with skill. And honestly, Cleveland looked a little bare on the shelves for Deshaun Watson in comparison to what he had in Houston. I mean, one year he had Will Fuller with D-Hop and Brandon Cooks. And then, he also had Will Fuller with D-Hop or D-Hop with Cooks and or some variety of that. He had D-Hop with Fuller and he had Cooks with Fuller and he had all those different combinations. You understand what I'm saying. But those years with Deshaun Watson in Houston, he was just feasting, right? So I feel like that's what they're trying to replicate here, is give him as many options as possible behind a really good offensive line, improve that drop back passing game, not necessarily through scheme or evolving scheme, because everything with Stefanski's always going to reside on the run play action game. And that's what the core of the Browns offense is going to be, even with Deshaun Watson, is Nick Chubb, the big offensive line, and that ability to run the ball. But then let's just get more skill at receiver so that our drop back passing game, even if it's simple or vanilla, we've got so many good playmakers, so many good one-on-one mismatches that it's still hard to match up with, no matter how kind of simplistic it is. Allow Deshaun Watson to just use his ability, his skill, his talent to extend plays, to throw the ball, to scramble, to run, and then to throw the ball deep, which is what his greatest asset was with the Texans, and have great receivers around him to make plays for him. And that is what I think their strategy is here. We don't have to do anything crazy with our scheme. We now have what is supposedly an elite talent at quarterback. Let's give him good talents around him at receiver and allow our passing game to flourish. So that's how I see the Browns building this. I like the trade ultimately. I feel the player has a lot of potential, and it's worth the trade and the investment to do so. If I'm the Jets, I don't love this trade. I feel like, yes, you move up in the draft, you get a second-round pick to maybe address in another position, and you're letting go of a player that you already have a ton of assets, but you didn't have to put that money into Allen Lazard or even Mecole Hardman. You didn't have to. You chose to. And I feel like you chose to for maybe the wrong reasons. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of this decision-making for the Jets ultimately. But Jets fans, don't forget to check out my video on Mecole Hardman, which I'm breaking down that full deal, that full contract, and my thoughts on Mecole Hardman. Browns fans, let me know what you guys think about Elijah Moore, the player, getting Elijah Moore, and him joining Deshaun Watson and this Browns offense. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out the next video. Gronk, spike the like button and subscribe. Peace.